Well, welcome everybody to our first Stronger Together for this season. My name is Jeff Bratz. We'll introduce our wonderful people on the table with me here and go through some of the festivities that will be taking place here today during our conversation. First of all, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us. I know on a race day it can be a little bit on the tricky side of things, so we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule after training. I know normally we'd probably go home, have a bit of a nap, and then get ready for the afternoon program. We want to thank New Holland for being our presenting sponsor here today as well. And we had a tractor outside, and we do have some great guests with us there in attendance. Obviously, they have been involved with horse people in Ontario for a long time, and they're committed to be with us here at Woodbine for the next 5 seasons. They believe in supporting the industry, and we really encourage you to consider supporting the brands that support our industry. We want to thank Scott Marshall, who's with us from Stewart's New Holland, and also they are going to be here along with his team of Kathy Thompson and Corinne Marshall as well if you want to get some more information on the New Holland equipment. So it has been an interesting year. It's been a year in which we've been able to race a full season, which has been tremendous. We just want to remind everybody that without you, this would not be possible. So thank you for coming out today and for being so supportive with us all season long. Just note that once today's session is completed, you can grab a voucher and redeem a lunch. Unfortunately, a non-alcoholic beverage, but still you can have a beverage nonetheless, and that's courtesy of our good friends at New Holland. So let's introduce our panel for today. The one constant that has been with us for all the Stronger Togethers has been Woodbine CEO Jim Lawson, who is in the middle. We are also joined by a newly appointed chair, but a familiar face to the industry, and that is Hugh Mitchell. I've known Hugh for a long, long time, and it's great to see Hugh with us back here at Woodbine. And Michael Copeland to my left, he's my boss. And he is the president of our commercial department who oversees marketing, broadcasting, partnership and wagering, and horse racing. We have a few topics that we'd like to cover, but we look forward to answering your questions as well. There'll be a microphone stand available once we do open up the floor to questions. So let's get down to business, and we'll start off with Jim Lawson, who right now is standing by with much anticipation for my first question. I promise to make it easy on you, Jim. We'll start off with the fact that there's been some changes in the Woodbine Board of Directors. There's been some changes in the executive leadership team. Can you take a moment to discuss the changes and why some of these changes have been made?
Sure. Well, the first one that is a big change with Hugh sitting beside me is Hugh has taken over as chair, which I'm thrilled about. Have had a long and good relationship with Hugh, and he brings a lot to the table. Many of you know Hugh, and our governance and our board will continue to do great work. As I say that, Christine McGee is decided to step down. She decided to step down with regret, but Christine is a very sought-after board member in this country. She is the latest as she's taken over the chair of the Trillium Health Group. The Trillium Health Group is the largest hospital group, bigger than the University Health Network in Toronto. The Trillium Health Group is larger, and Christine, when she was asked to do that, she felt duty-bound to take over that, and she came to me and said that she just couldn't do everything. She's also on the board of TELUS. She's on the board of Metro Grocery Store. She's chair of Sleep Country Canada, and she was just strapped. But I do want to say, I know she's not watching, but I think we should acknowledge that the great work that Christine did. This is a company that many of you have watched and over the last few years that has evolved from a company that I would say had very little governance until 2012, and has evolved with a world-class board with first-class, I'll say public company style governance over the years, and it's because of people like Christine and Clay Horner and the strength of the board that we've built at Woodbine, and very much an independent board that I would say the industry is in very good hands in terms of how the independent board looks at how this company is run and places a strategic direction, and I'm very comfortable that where we're headed, and Hugh's going to carry on with that legacy of a strong board that we've had. We've also just recently added Marvin Katz. Marvin Katz is clearly well known to the horse racing industry, in particular on the standardbred side, a leading breeder and breed owner. He's also had the benefit of bringing to the board a skills matrix, which in addition to his horse racing experience includes real estate development, which of course with what we have ahead of us here on this property is going to be valuable. So Marvin has agreed to join the board. So it's exciting where we're at as a company today, and we do need a strong board, and the AGCO is always looking to ensure that we're doing the right things with our board in terms of skills matrix. They don't get into the nitty gritty, but they do want us to rationalize every board member and what we're doing, and I'm very comfortable that we've taken some great steps, and welcome Hugh. We're excited to have you on. In terms of the management changes, we did just go through a restructuring. The two the principles of the restructuring, Michael Copeland, who's sitting here with us, and you'll hear a lot from Michael today. Michael has assumed responsibility for horse racing, and I think the biggest change there is that we're going to move horse racing to work much closer with marketing and with broadcasting and overall commercial relationships, which Michael is responsible for all of those areas and integrating those areas. The cross-pollination of ideas, getting them to work in sync is going to work extremely well on Michael. He's got a great background, strategic background, business background to do all of that, and we're fortunate to have Michael looking after the commercial area of the business, and it's necessary because the amount of competition that we're facing these days for wagering, for our business, we have to be at the top of our game all the time when it comes to our wagering and our marketing and bringing the horse racing product together with those areas and making it all work, and of course the great simulcast work that we do. So thrilled to have Michael in that role. Tom Vaya, who many of you know, who's been our Chief Operating Officer, he's moving into the position of being responsible for all operations, which would include legal, finance, operations, generally including hospitality, and all the management of the projects that continually go on, not only in this backstretch, but a lot going on the front side of our plant too. So Tom, I know, is here, but so that's the major shift that's gone on, and it's going to set us up very well for the future.
The one thing that you mentioned a lot, Jim, too, when we were going through the pandemic was that we would emerge stronger together, and it's something that at the time was hard for us to grasp, but I think now we've emerged from it and we've understood your vision to that extent. It does seem like numbers-wise things are going in a somewhat positive direction right now. So let's bring in Michael Copeland now to discuss that more on what the season looks like right now. Michael, you and I were just talking about the fact that, you know, for me, and I'm sure for the horse people as well, it's kind of been nice to get a sense of normalcy all of a sudden, you know, but obviously COVID's still here, we all know that, but the fact that we've had a full racing season has been tremendous. How the numbers look so far in 2022?
Well, first and foremost, hello everybody. By the way, to those I haven't met yet, I look forward to meeting you. It's a privilege that I take very seriously, being involved in this part of the business with all of you. So thank you for that. I think you hit it off right at the start, Jeff. Having a full season of racing has been incredible this year. You know, not only does it allow us to get back to work and have sort of the full experience, but when you see everything that goes into it, how people respond to, you know, being back on the track, having their operations in full swing, it kind of reminds us what we missed when we were off with the pandemic. And I just want to thank all of you for, your resilience and your patience and commitment to getting through that incredibly difficult period of time and coming back strong. The proof did come out in the numbers. We've had a really strong year this year. So, it's wagering is up this year. So in terms of our total wagering number, we are up both from the Woodbine product and from the foreign wagering. We think we have a chance of perhaps crossing $600 million in total wagering this year, which would be the first time we've been able to do that. The previous record was around 533. So if we have a good, strong back end of the year, which we hope to do, that would be a pretty significant milestone. So we're pretty excited about that, and the fact that we're seeing the success across the board it builds our confidence. Our average race profit per race, wagering per race is down a little bit, but versus last year. I think that's largely the part because of the late start. So when we had some of the earlier races where field sizes are lower, taking those out of the average helped to bolster the remainder of the card last year, which boosted up the per race wagering number. But this year, with more races, the overall number is strong. So we're really, really happy with that. And especially after a period of being away from it, to see it come back strong has been great. In terms of field size, is something we're always focused on, and last year our field size we averaged about 8.8 horses per race. Now that was again, a bit of a different year with fewer races, but this year we're at around 8. So a fairly significant decline. But if you think of 2019 as a bit of an outlier year. Last year as an outlier year. In 2019, the last full season of racing, we were at about 8.2. So we're still off. It still is a major focal point for us. It's something that we spend almost all of our time focused on driving that number up, and because higher field sizes support higher wagering, which allows us to put more money back into purses to support the industry, and that's really all we're here to do. As you know, Woodbine is a not-for-profit. We do not have share capital. There are no shareholders that participate and share in the profits of the business, and all of our net profit goes back into support the industry in the form of purses. So our entire focus area, and the reason that we have such an emphasis about bringing all the business functions together, is we think that when you do that, we're going to get efficiencies and we're going to get strength that's going to allow us to really drive revenues and profits in a significant way. And when we're able to do that, we're able to then put more money back in to support the industry, not only with purses, but other supporting programs. So that's the plan. I plan to be very aggressive in that regard and to show results very quickly. And I think there's a ton of opportunity. We're already seeing in a short amount of time how when you get these groups working together, the power that it brings. And we're going to innovate, we're going to lead, and we're going to show you results. So that's great. And then, most important, we can't forget safety. Woodbine remains at the top among tracks in North America in terms of our safety record, and casualties on the track. And we're very, very proud of that, and we continue to drive that. And we talk about that as a management team as one of our key metrics. It's not all just numbers. We talk about safety, and we will continue to lead the industry in that regard.
Thank you for that, Michael, and welcome again from all of us. It's great to have you with us today here at your first Stronger Together. Let's bring in a gentleman now that has been involved in a variety of parts of the thoroughbred and standardbred game, and that is Hugh Mitchell. And Hugh, welcome to your first Stronger Together as well. I wanted to ask you a topic that I think is on a lot of people's mind right now. What have you and the board talked about in terms of the dates for the plates, and will it at some point be renamed the King's Plates?
So thank you, Jeff, for the question. First of all, it's really good to be back at Woodbine, in particular in the backstretch of Woodbine. It's been a while. But as many of you might know, I grew up on a horse farm, and I currently today live on a horse farm. So it's nice to be back around horse people and horses. And it's even a plus, too, as I look out a meeting window and see a tractor. That doesn't happen very often in my world these days. So it's good to be here. The question of the Queen's Plate and what we do with the date and how we might name it, those details, frankly, have yet to be answered, but they will hopefully by the end of this meet, maybe early December. That's our plan. But we have had discussions, certainly at the board level, and I know management has as well on both issues. Let me simply say this from a personal perspective on the naming of the race. As all of you know, Canada has had a long-standing relationship, a great relationship with the British Commonwealth for years and years. And as you know, the head of state of the Commonwealth is the monarchy. And for years, we've recognized the head of state by the naming of a race for about 70 years, the Queen's Plate. And prior to that, historians in the room will know that it once was called the King's Plate when King George was the king, prior to Queen Elizabeth. So there's a precedent there. Now we have a king. So although we haven't decided exactly what that plate name will be, it's my view that we'd be well advised and prudent and respectful of the monarchy to continue to recognize the head of state when we identify the plate. That said, we'll see where it takes us, but it's one of those, it is the flagship of our whole stake season. It's the premier racing event for Canada, for thoroughbreds, and I can assure you that management and staff, whatever it's named and whatever the date might be, we will continue to put the effort that's needed to profile and present it as the premier racing event in North America. As you know, it's the longest continuously running stake, and it deserves the kind of recognition that has been given to it and will continue to be given to it. It's pretty important for us, and I think it's very important for the thoroughbred industry that we put an effort and the resources into promoting and profiling that great race. So, yet to be named officially, hopefully an announcement sometime in early December, and the date, as we work through the details, will be announced at the same time. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it does, you absolutely, because obviously for planning purposes, with some trainers going south and some trainers not going south, you know, you want to have a date, and we'll have some certainty for you that in the not too distant future in regards to what exactly the date may be. Now, one thing that is very prominent, whether you're watching the Leafs or the Raptors or you're just reading the newspaper, is sports betting, Michael. Everywhere you look right now, sports betting is right in your face. And the one thing that Jim fought for a long time, and thankfully got, was the government to not allow fixed odds wagering on horse racing, which was huge. My question to you is, has there been any movement in getting the FanDuels and these other big groups involved in racing in some aspect, maybe through HBI? What exactly is going on right now with sports gambling and getting it intertwined somewhat with us here at Woodbine?
Sure. Well, from the outset, when single event sports wagering was contemplated for Ontario, the government and the regulators clearly understood that racing needed to be protected. So we needed to continue to control racing revenues so we could continue in our mandate and mission to support the industry. So that's why it was exempted. So as Jeff mentioned, the new sports books, whether it's BetMGM or Bet365 or FanDuel, can offer any sport except racing. So what we have done is we are going to provide racing through their sports books with the sports betting companies being our partners and presenting the content. But for purposes of the law, we are actually providing it in the back end. So it will be seamless to the user. If a user goes on to one of those sports books, they can select hockey or basketball or football or racing. And when they click on racing, they'll have the ability to place bets and wager on our content. To them, it will look like they're making a bet with whatever sportsbook they're on, but in actual fact, it'll be running through our systems in the back, much like a bet placed through HPI Bet does. So that is what we're working towards. We've had tremendous conversations with all of the new sports operators in Ontario. They all understand and appreciate the value that racing brings to their customers and to the overall strength of their own offerings. I mean, racing is anywhere between 20 to 50% of the handle that's wagered on an online sportsbook. And so there's power in that, and they see it. So what we're doing now is we are just working with a partner to develop what that actual technology and the platform looks like. And as you can imagine, and as I can't explain, it's really, really complicated in terms of all of the transactions and information flows that have to happen. Chris Lush, our Chief Technology Officer, is leading that charge. And we've had a very, very strong partner relationship where we're developing that mechanism. We're very close, weeks for that matter, to having that completed. Once we have that done, what we then do is we bring it back to the regulators and say, this is how it's going to work. You can look under the hood, check it out for yourself. We have prepped them for that so they know what to expect. When they do that, they're going to see that it is going to operate exactly as we suggested, which is we are managing the transaction in line with the original vision, and then we should be good to go. So our hope is over under by the end of the year, we'll have racing available through the online sports books. It'll be with a couple at the start because these companies have varying degrees of technical capability to launch this. But we've got a lineup of others that are going to get in to the game and do a partnership with us. I should mention we're doing it on a basis that it'll be lucrative for them. It'll be good business for them. It'll also be good business for us. But it's important because we want them to promote racing. So as you see this coming out and being expanded and launched within the market, these organizations, which have massive war chests for marketing purposes, are going to be proactively driving racing as one of their products. So we'll get equal billing with hockey and basketball and football. And that's going to open us up to an entirely new segment of customers. So you can imagine young sports bettors that are going to have a really seamless, easy way to interact with racing, combined with a big marketing push behind it, is going to, it really is sort of an inflection point for us where we can have an entirely new market that we can speak to and really seed the next generation of racing fans. So it's pretty exciting stuff, and everything has been going very well, and we're very anxious, as you are, to get it going, and we hope in the next couple months we'll see it live.
Yeah, exciting stuff. I can't wait to see that, and hopefully it happens in the not-too-distant future for us here at Woodbine Entertainment as well. You know, Jim, every time I drive into the property, I just look at the casino and the construction taking place, and I just marvel at how quickly things are moving. What is the status right now of the casino project front, and more importantly to us, what type of impact could that have once it's done for horse racing?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Well, I'll say not as quickly as we'd like, and not as quickly as was anticipated, but COVID and in particular has slowed the project down. It's looking like today that there's three distinct pieces to what you see being developed on the north side of the property. Of course, there's the casino, which is a couple 100,000 square foot gaming floor expansion, and there's the music auditorium, which will have about 4,500 seats, and then the hotel overlooking the track, which is they're all spectacular facilities, and right now it's looking like the spring, potentially for all three of them to open. I don't think it'll be any later than April or May, and with the possibility of the casino floor opening ahead of that time. It's been difficult working, I'll just, don't want to get into too much detail, but one thing in particular, when we fought for the ability for gaming to come to this property, and it was all done by Woodbine. It wasn't done by the casino operators because they weren't around at the time. OLG put it in the hands of Woodbine to fight for that zoning. One thing that I think there were, I know Bill Ford's here, but I'll just throw out a number, about 135 conditions that had to be met before that gaming floor could open and operate with the expansion. And we are still working to finalize all those conditions with the City of Toronto, and that I think the construction of the gaming floor at least should be done early in the new year. It's whether we can get all the conditions satisfied. And then I think the casino operators are going to have to decide whether they want to open all three of those major facilities at once or open the gaming floor ahead of it. It's important to the economics of what we do. We have leased them that land for 40 years, and there's a major bump in our rent once those facilities open. And so we are sitting on pins and needles hoping they open early because we're counting on it in terms of our operating costs for next year. The earlier they open, the earlier they have to pay rent under that ground lease for 40 years. So it's we're going to do everything we can to meet the conditions so they're not pointing the finger at Woodbine saying you didn't get the conditions and therefore we're not opening. So our group has got it well in hand. So that's on the north side. On the south side, there is some really good news I think coming on that, or I know coming on that. We're working through with Metrolinx on a train station on the southeast corner. It will unleash the value and the opportunities for this property for decades and generations. And it's, for me and for this industry, I think it's a game changer to not only increase the value of what goes on here, but the exposure that it'll bring for racing, the opportunity for people to travel to work finally without, we haven't had mass transit here ever. There's people who take the bus here. It's difficult to get to this property, and therefore it's difficult to develop this property. It's difficult for your employees to come here. It's difficult for our employees to get here. And with the train station, which will ultimately, I think, hook up with the light rail transit, which is going to go over to Humber, and then hopefully down the road, when I say down the road in two ways, hopefully within the next 10 years, there'll be that light rail transit running down Highway 27, which will intersect at the train station at Woodbine, and then will also connect with the Union Pearson line, so over to the airport. So it will connect. There'll be a hub, not maybe the major hub that you've heard about in the West End, but it'll be a central hub and maybe the first of its kind in this area for the GO train, the Union Pearson line, the light rail transit, all to come to Woodbine, and that will be great not only for exposure of racing, getting people here, and also potential development, including, as we saw this week with the change in legislation, including residential. Here we have as many as 25,000 units planned for this site of residential, which will do a lot for racing, I believe, in terms of we're always going to keep racing at center ice of this site. We've allocated no less than 240 acres. If we do, when the GO train does go ahead, and I'm more confident than I've ever been that it will go ahead, we're going to have to move the training track. We may have to move some barns. That has all been planned and in great detail. The training track would likely move to the not likely, it's planned to move to the northwest corner. It'll be a better setup than we've got today in terms of what it looks like for years to come, and I think we're going to have, I know we're going to have better facilities. And this is a racetrack company first and foremost. At the same time, given the economics of this industry, we are having to use our real estate, having to use hopefully sports betting to generate alternative sources of revenue, because this industry doesn't work very well without those additional sources of revenue. I was saying to Hugh this week, actually, and Hugh was nodding and agreeing that somehow this industry, and in particular Woodbine Entertainment, has to get off the government subsidy. We cannot continue to be under the thumb of the government, and because it exposes us. There, at any given time, as we all experienced in between 2012 and 2013, if a government comes along and says they don't like racing anymore and we're dependent on it, this industry is in real trouble. So it's our goal as a corporation to make sure that we get off that government subsidy so we're no longer dependent on it. And the way to do that is increasing our wagering on the racing side, using our real estate to generate additional revenue, and hopefully participating in sports betting. Those are our major focuses right now, is racing and real estate and sports betting, and all with a view to letting this industry, in particular Woodbine Entertainment, stand on its own 2 feet. It's for fear that the government comes along someday and cuts us off altogether. So we can't go through that again. And hopefully we did learn our lesson in 2012 or 2013, and that's what we're working towards. So,
Thank you for that, Jim. Obviously, a lot of things taking place in that regard right now. And we'll very much look forward to hopefully having the casino open in the month of April and getting the ball rolling there. We will open the floor to questions in the not too distant future. But one question I know everybody wants to talk about is race dates. Let's talk about race dates a little bit now, Michael. We've had, obviously, without COVID, we've gone used to the 133 days of racing. Jim in the past has talked about the potential for looking at those numbers. I know you guys continue to analyze the numbers. What are things looking like right now? Has a decision been made? What can you tell us looking ahead to next season?
Yeah, no decision's been made in that regard. I mean, any decision with respect to race days would have to be made in consultation with government, with HBPA, and a lot of analysis. But to start with, when the topic of race days comes up and why we would even consider it, it's only motivated by looking for an ability to drive wagering revenues higher so we can then support higher purses. So it's just looking for efficiency. As you know, field size drives wagering. So with pressure on the horse population, we have to look at ways to increase field size on average across the length of the meet. And if we're able to do that and we're able to increase wagering, then it's going to benefit the entire industry. So we are looking at ways that we might be able to do that. We have not yet landed on a proposal to bring forward for further conversation. What I will say is we appreciate that Woodbine needs a long meet. We benefit from a long meet. We want people to make a commitment to being here. We want trainers to keep their horses on the grounds. We want your employees to have some stability to know that a long meet is something they can depend on. When we talk about reducing race dates, we're really in the range of maybe 8 to 10 is where we think there might be an opportunity. But even with that, and those would be at the front end of the meet, the first couple weeks, likely, when field sizes are a little bit lower. And there also, it would be a priority within that model to reallocate those races to other days within the remainder of the meet. So there actually wouldn't be a material net loss in actual races that would be run. Think of maybe 15 in total, because we've looked at how we can pace them out, and if we put them at other parts of the meet, we think we can drive much higher wagering with them. The other factor in this is, it would give some clarity as to when the meet would start, and in the spring we know there's some difficulty with that, but it would be about a couple weeks max. So, we continue to look at this. We continue to look at the impact it would have. The one thing, though, overlying all of this, if any changes eventually were to be made in this regard, it would not affect purses. Purses would remain flat. So it would take the existing purse money and allocate it over the rest of the meet. So the same amount of money would be going into the industry. It would just be received over a different schedule of races. So more to come, but that's the logic of why we're looking at it and the rationale, and we hope to bring that forward to, again, to government and to your representatives and see where we go from there.
So you spoke about purses. Why did we all of a sudden see a purse increase recently? And purses, as you said, will look very much the same for next season?
Yeah, they will. I mean, the same overall in terms of total aggregate. We had an increase recently, which you're all aware of. The reason for that is we want to pay out all of our estimated purse monies over the course of a year. We have an obligation to do it. Anything that we don't spend, we carry over into the following year, but we don't want to carry purse money over to the following year. We want to pay it out to you. But when we forecast, you can't forecast with ultimate precision. There are so many variables that affect how much money you pay out, including Ontario sire and Ontario bred bonuses, because we don't know who's going to win the races. So if we get a higher proportion of Ontario horses winning races, it could result in more or less bonuses going out. The type of races that we're able to include in the condition books, whether they warrant higher purses or lower purses, are going to affect how much we pay out. So what happened this year is we had a surplus of money at a point in time, more than we thought we would have at that point in time. And if we continued on with purse levels where they were, we would have had a significant surplus. So we would have held the money over the winter and then put it back into next year's account. That's not where we want to be. We want to pay it out to you. So we increase purses on certain races for the rest of this year. Next year, purses will remain or go back to the levels that we observed at the front part of this year. We will again try to forecast it out for the entire year. If we run into the same issue, then we'll find a mechanism to get that money to you. But that's why they went up.
One last question, then we'll open the floor up to questions. What about the Ontario Sire program for next season? Do you envision any changes in that program for next year?
Well, I mean, that really lies with Ontario Racing. Ontario Racing and the TIP program or the TIP committee within Ontario Racing makes those decisions. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a formula, a mandated government formula that prescribes that 3% of total handle from the local market area from Ontario goes into the horse improvement program, so the HIP program. Of that, 55% of that goes into the TIP program. So there's an allocated amount of funds based on total wagering. So again, driving wagering is sort of the ultimate place we want to get to, because all good things come from higher wagering totals. But so that's where the overall TIP money, the amount of money, is determined. So it's a ordained amount, and then the TIP committee and ultimately the board of Ontario Racing will determine how to apply that TIP money. So we think it requires some more discussion as to how the strategy behind where that money goes. We understand the benefits that it's had in terms of being directed at the Ontario programs, but we also think there's room to look at other opportunities and then evaluate them. So I don't know the answer, but I do know that we should always be looking at opportunities. We intend to have that discussion on an ongoing basis with your representatives, whether that's HBPA or whether it's another horsemen's group that comes up in the next agreement, to always keep that conversation going forward. But that's how the money is allocated, and we work with Ontario Racing to help make those decisions.
Yeah, I just want to not add to that, but just a couple of things that I think are important in terms of purse allocation. It is really hard to determine. I mean, I think on Sunday we spent we've got our thumb on our racing department all the time to make sure they're spending the purse money, but also not spending too much purse money. We're trying to come in on it. And on Sunday, I think we went like $400,000 over budget in one day. It's really hard to predict it fluctuates like that. What happened at the end of August is we woke up and because of field sizes and because of which horses were winning races, all of a sudden we had this excess. So that's when we decided to do the increase. The other thing that Michael touched upon in terms of looking at race dates, I mean, one of the things, we're not looking at an impact in purses. We're looking at a minimal change, trying to deal with the spring when we're really short. But I think one thing to keep in mind, if we lose a race date, we're going to move, the intention is to move those races to Saturday and Sunday. And think of it this way. We bet 2.5 or 3 million on a Thursday or Friday. We bet 6 or 7 million on a Saturday or Sunday. And so if we're moving those races from a Thursday to a Saturday, we're going to get double the amount of wagering, which will benefit everyone on those same races. So I think it's the way we're looking at it. We're not overall, the initial models I've seen, it's a very rosy picture. We're not here, as Michael said, and I've said many times, the strength of Woodbine is being here 8 or 9 months of the year. So the jockeys can come and raise families here, the trainers, the families. I mean, that's what this place is all about. So that's not changing. I mean, I hear these nasty rumors, and we're all trying to do this together to make it best. And I think it's important to understand what we're trying to do with the wagering. So.
And the reason why on Sunday more money was paid out is because Canadian Breds did so well on the races on Sunday's program. So that's why all those horses were eligible for bonuses, and that's why so much excess money was paid out. So I want to thank you, Jim and Michael, for taking time out of their schedule to join us, and thank you to you for joining us as well. And we're going to open the floor up to some questions. So anybody that would like to come up and ask a question, feel free to do so. There's a microphone right there. There's obviously an opportunity. There's obviously an opportunity for you to ask questions, maybe as you plan ahead to next season, if you have any concerns that maybe we can answer, because it's very rare that these three gentlemen are all available at the same time. So if you want to come up and ask a question, feel free to do so. So again, I just want to thank you guys again for joining us today, and looking forward very much to next season as well. And obviously we still have a lot of big races coming up this year as well. Breeders' Crown coming up this weekend. That's going to be a ton of fun. We've got some marquee races for the 2-year-olds as well. So I don't know if we have any questions or not, but you can come up and ask anything else. Oh, we got one from Kevin. So Kevin, coming up and ask a question.
Hi. I have a little concern about the race date still. I think you talk about field size in the spring. The biggest challenge in the spring is the training track and the condition that it is. A lot of times your schedule works and you have to cancel because the track is too dry, it doesn't have any moisture, it's not probably a safe track to do fast work on. There's obviously in the winter, like in the early spring, there's plenty of challenges to deal with Mother Nature, but the track isn't kept up as it was in times previous. Is there any chance possibly to have the main track open as soon as we ship in, where we have a more consistent surface, which I personally think, and I'm sure a lot of the other trainers would think on the same lines, that we have an opportunity to get a lot of these horses ready without these interruptions because of the poor track condition or Mother Nature playing its toll. Because I understand the concept of, pushing races to Saturday and Sunday, but on average, horses only run, like at Woodbine, 8 to 10 times a year if you're lucky. And the later we start, I'm not sure it does anybody benefit by having these horses run anymore, because horses don't typically run for 2 to 3 weeks. The better horses even further. So the later we have in a start, I don't see how it can be positive, and by just kind of racing on the weekend, adding extra races, things like that, where maybe we just run Saturday and Sunday strictly early in the season to have those kind of weekend cards where we generate more money. But I think it all comes back to having a surface where we can train on and that's consistent and safe for the horses.
Do you want to take that?
Sure. Listen, Kevin, certainly it's something we can take a look at. And again, we hear you. I mean, there's a lot of work done around the edges in terms of what it means. Track surfaces are part of it, but a big part of it also is that we have 5 or 6 or 7 of our biggest stables that don't have horses here. When you show up at the beginning of March, we've got a lot of our big trainers that don't show up until April.
They don't show up either because the main track's not open a lot of them.
Well, and I'll take issue with that. But anyway, I don't want to argue about it. We'll look at it. But that's our bigger problem, is we just don't have the horses here. And when we open up, we often open up with like 100 horses on the grounds at most. So anyway, it's all, we're in this together. We're trying to do the best. And what we're looking around the edges here, and we'll see what we can do in terms of when that main track can get open.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add, if there was an opportunity and a solution, whether it's that one or another one that would result in a significantly increased number of horses on the grounds, we're all in. Like, that's a great situation to be in. So we'll investigate it and see if there's legs on it. But it's
Aqueduct covers their turf course in the wintertime with a tarp. Maybe it's something to look at with the synthetic track, kind of covering it after our season's done to keep the weather from getting to it. And then, when they're ready to come in, it's a matter of maybe blowing whatever snow is on or that hasn't melted. I'm sure that they use something that probably the sun penetrates and it melts the snow off anyways. But at least maybe it stops the frost or it kind of from freezing the track completely, where you can start to work on it quicker.
Yep, we'll look at it. It's a good idea.
Josie?
Yeah.
Just going to wait till you get, just so people online can hear your
The
question.
problem is not people shipping in March 1st. The problem is people being here ready to race April 1st, whatever it is. We're in Florida all winter. They're all back here for the first day of racing. Sorry, I have a cold. Have we thought of anything? The states, they give trainers so much money per start. Now, a lot of these smaller guys that go away in the winter will be encouraged to come back here if they, at the end of the year or whenever they get a nice check to help them. It'll help them eat. A lot of these guys are working every day to barely feed themselves. So if they could get like 100 or 200 a start, just like the owners are getting, like when you increased it to 500 for the owners, it would have been a lot nicer to give, and I'm not talking for ourselves, but it would be nicer to give these guys $100 each to keep them going. So it's one way of getting people back. And when we had an abundance of horses, and I know it's hard to do now, if you weren't shipped in by a certain date, you lost your stalls. I know we have too many stalls and we need horses. We need to do something to encourage those big stables to get back here. This has to be the priority.
We've looked at the idea of participation payments or bonuses. I think it's a strong debate as to whether it's beneficial or not, but I think it's something we'll continue to look at. We came to the conclusion that it was better to allocate the purse monies as we currently have them constituted, but it's something that we'll continue to look at. It's an ongoing discussion. I don't think there is a definitive right or wrong answer on that one. No, Jim, do you want to add anything to that?
Hi, everybody. For those that don't know me, Colleen Delos, Tall Oaks Farm. More of a commentary and more as a thought for all of you guys. We hear a ton about analytics and statistics and looking at reports and numbers, and we all understand the importance of wagering and field size. But I think you need to remember there is a huge human element here, and there's another big group of stakeholders that are really, really important and need to be factored in as much as you guys are focused on your numbers. And I think you're hearing a little bit of those kinds of comments, but from the stakeholders who are going to be your horse supply, you've got to make sure you've got our feedback and that you're also looking at what's important to us, which is the race opportunities. Again, starting later and taking weeks away means less opportunities. Sure, I know there'll be more purse money perhaps, but to Kevin's point, 2 or 3 weeks less for me means one less race, maybe two, for some of those horses. So I just would encourage you guys, please, to include your breeders in more conversations. Please talk to your owners in more conversations, and please make sure you're also thinking about how your stakeholders feel. Because if we start to get discouraged and losing money, there goes your horse supply. We are your horse supply.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say we fully thank you. We fully appreciate that. You know, our we have people that are on the backstretch talking to owners, talking to trainers, and I would also encourage you to talk to your horsemen's groups. I mean, that's why they are here and why they serve you. And any concerns that you have, we're more than happy to consider every one of them. And we have a mechanism in place where, you know, that's really why the relationship exists, is for that group to represent you. So please bring, if you find that you're not having an opportunity to talk one-on-one, which our doors are always open to you, to speak to your horseman groups, and they have a direct line to us if they ever want to raise an issue. So you should not feel that anything goes unheard. And also, you know, when we talk about numbers and data, and I know it can sound cold and I know it can sound distant, but we're doing it because we're trying to have a result on the industry, on you. That's the only reason this organization exists, is to make the industry sustainable and productive. If we don't achieve that, we don't exist. There's no reason to have a job. It's a not-for-profit organization whose mandate is to support the Ontario horse racing industry. It's not to generate profit. It's not to build real estate. There's no other reason for us existing. Every decision we make is so we can wind through and say, what is the ultimate result of this, and is it going to make your life as an owner or a breeder or a trainer or a hot walker or somebody on the backstretch better? And it may be difficult to always communicate all of those touch points and all the sequence, how we get from a decision to making your life better, but that's the only thing we're focused on every single day. So you might disagree with some of the tactics we have. We might not do a great job of communicating how we get from A to B, but you should never confuse our motivation. It is the only reason this organization exists, and I can tell you, I've been part of conversations where we have raised opportunities and we said we can't do that. In a private business, they may do that. In a business that has shareholders and investors, they may do that. They may cut costs. They may shut down businesses. They may make other decisions. We can't do that, and we don't do that because it would impact you. So that's one thing I would ask, is never confuse any decision we make with any compromise on our motivation to help you and put this industry in a better spot. If we don't do that, then we've completely failed in our mission, and I don't like to fail at anything.
Randy?
Yeah, my main concern is with the surplus of money that you guys got, if you guys could scrap the environmental fee, you know, as small as it is, it adds up for people that got like 30 and 40 horses, you know, by $2 a day, it's a lot as it accumulates, you know. I might not got that much right now, but the environmental fee, those are things that I really think that you guys should raise, because we here putting on the show for you guys to put on the money, so them kind of things you guys would be good if you guys could cover, you know what I mean? Because we waking up every day and dealing with these horses, and a lot of things went up really vast over this last year, and I don't think the environmental fee is a fee that we should keep covering to keep you guys shows going on, you know?
Okay, we'll take that back. Yeah.
Hi. This is on a bit of a different subject that I think affects a few trainers here. I mean, I know we have a lack of horses and a lack of Americans coming here, which used to fill our stalls quite a bit. And one of the main reasons that they usually say is because of the employment situation. There aren't employees here. I do use foreign workers, and there are a number of people that do. It's becoming increasingly difficult to bring them here, and I don't know if you're aware or not, but they actually changed the rule this year, so there's a percentage that you can bring. And I was told by a lawyer that I went to, because they gave out a lot of open-end work visas to Ukrainians, and they have to take it from somewhere else. So for us here that are already struggling with employees, it's going to make it worse. And I think to encourage American trainers to come here, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I don't know if you have anyone in that division or next to the government that would be any help to us doing that.
Is I don't know, is Bill in the room? Or Bill, did you want to comment on that at all? I know we do focus on that. Bill's our general counsel and runs all of our legal affairs. And
hi, yeah, Bill Ford. This is obviously something we look at and monitor a lot. We would love for there to be a larger work pool here. We do have some outside lawyers on retainers for us, very specialists in immigration. We have actually worked tirelessly to ensure that the jockeys could get over as needed when they needed to, and ensure that they had the opportunity to work on the other side as well. We can look into it. One of the real difficulties we've had is a lot of the people that wanted to come over were in the United States without the proper documentation in the first place, and therefore they had a hard time going from the United States. They didn't want to leave the US in fear that they couldn't get back. So I'm happy to continue to work with you and people on the HBPA. We talk to Sue all the time on this, and I'm the right contact person at Woodbine, and reach out to me.
Would I be able to talk to you?
Yeah.
I have to have people that are already here and they are legal.
Yep. Yeah, no, feel free to reach out to me, and be Ford at Woodbine, and we'll have a discussion.
Hello. The TIP program, or the Ontario Sire program, has made a big difference over the last few years in the whole breeding industry. I understand there's loss of revenue that we had originally with the slots program, but with the cutback, a lot of people aren't breeding anymore, which has really pulled back our numbers. I know we have a number of mares that we haven't even bred because our opportunities have been lessened, racing opportunity, and our chance to make money in the Ontario Sire program. The races that we used to have more available to us was the biggest race sizes, which was huge for the gambling part, as well as all the other races were filled, I thought, a lot better because we had that many more horses population in Ontario. So that's all part of the whole cycle. What do you propose or are thinking about the breeding program to help us increase our Ontario breeders?
I mean, I think we absolutely, the Ontario breeders are critically important to the health and viability of the industry. So anything we can do to support it, we will do. I think that's proven to some extent by where the Ontario Sire program currently is. It's the highest in North America, if not second, Tim. I'm kind of looking. I know that our bonuses are significantly higher than almost every other jurisdiction in terms of supporting their local industry. We would love it to be higher if it was supportable, but that all comes back to the number of resources we have and how we allocate them out. So, we have our purse budget. Part of that is the TIP budget, and we have to make decisions in coordination with Ontario Racing, again, who controls the TIP budget, as to how we phase that out to support a healthy total meet and to make sure that we can support all races in the condition book. But I think we've over-indexed and emphasized the Ontario races, which is good business. The question is, how much room do we have to continue to do that without hurting other parts of the meat? And that's a constant balance that we have to make. And this is, getting back to our strategy and to drive revenues. The more revenue that comes in, the easier it is to make those allocation decisions. So our plan is to drive our resources so we have more to put into the Ontario industry. But without the Ontario industry, we don't exist. So it's always top of mind for us.
The other thing I'll say, John, is when things took a turn in 2015 and thereabouts, and the government developed Ontario racing and the structure of Ontario racing, one thing that I'd like to see is we do have a strong group of breeders in this province, and the breeders need to, and this is not to cause a political furor, but the breeders need to be part of Ontario racing in a big way, and I'm hoping they will be, because that's a little bit of a missing element today when we talk about the improvement programs, and we're all in this together, and I'm hoping the breeders will take up that mantle. Once you understand the mechanics and the politics of all this, I'm hoping the breeders will step up and be part of Ontario racing, because that's a key, and that's going to help.
How you doing? Not to be disrespectful, I've never seen you before, met you before, but listening to you speak today kind of feels encouraging, listening to you give us positive advice, because every time we listen to these meetings, everyone leaves here thinking same old shit. But listening to you speak today, honestly, it does sound promising. I got a couple.
Can I say I thought that was going in a completely different direction?
I got everyone on that one. No, for real though. Like honestly, we've all
when anything starts with I don't mean to be disrespectful, you're like, oh, here it comes. Listen, I ran the Toronto Argonauts. I know how to take criticism. So
I just got a couple of things here. So we talk about incentives for horses coming in. Woodbine came up with the idea a couple of years ago for incentive bonuses. Great idea. It could be tweaked a little bit, because I had clients that weren't licensed the last couple of years, claimed horses thinking they were going to get bonus money, and because they weren't licensed the year before, they got nothing, and they kind of got a sour taste in their mouth. Maybe just a little tweak to that might get guys to come in, because if you got a new guy that's wanting to get in the game and he says, what about this, and this, and I say, hey, if you do and you run them 3 times and you get shipping bonus money, it might get a guy a little more push to jump into it. Otherwise, he's waiting here and he's not finding a horse. We're talking about a ton of horses leaving. Gulfstream has a rule: you claim a horse, you can't run it anywhere else for 90 days. Like it's simple. Like we're losing horses at the end of the meet instantly, and I think it's one of those things that should stop. Like we lose too many horses. The waiver claiming rule. Kevin and I talked about that a long time. We talked to Steve Lim. Everyone thought it was foolish, and then when it finally comes through, it saves a lot of the smaller guys. Like you can run that cheap horse that you run at the end of the meet back for the same price instead of running it 10 times over his head. So my last one was, your guys in constant communication with the HPBA. I know there's always a break in communication, but anytime I talk to the HPBA, it just seems to be like they can never get a straight answer when I ask them questions. They say they talk to you guys, and it just seems to get pushed aside. Do you feel that there's proper communication between the two of you when meetings happen, or is it just things get swept under the rug and things don't get done? Because we often hear, I talk to Josie all the time. Josie, what do you think about this? I'll bring it to the HPBA, I'll bring it to the board, and things kind of just go stale afterwards. So is there proper communication before changes are made, or is it just kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody that's involved in this business has good intentions and has priorities and has a belief in the way to do things. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree. I believe and I hope that we have a respectful professional relationship. We don't talk all the time. But if there's a critical issue and something that we need to know about, I would hope that the HBPA or you or anyone else in this room or anyone else in the backstretch would feel comfortable enough to bring that forward to us. Because if it's a good idea and it's something that fits with the rest of the things we're doing, then we'd be stupid not to implement it. But on the other side, we have a lot of different things we have to manage, a lot of things we have to balance, a lot of competing priorities. And if we trust that we're trying to head in the right direction and ultimately do the right thing for the industry that will benefit, it's going to have to cost us, it's going to cause us to compromise or disagree on certain things. And what I would hope is that when we disagree on something, it doesn't mean we're not listening. It doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean we're clued out. It means we're making a choice between that and something else. And it's our belief, and there's really smart people, really passionate people that care about this and where we go, it's our choice that that's the better way to go forward. Yeah. And the reality is, we have the mandate to run this business and make those decisions. So we're happy to take input, but we would not be doing our jobs well if we had to implement and felt compelled to implement every decision and every piece of feedback that was given to us, because I guarantee you, any piece of feedback that came to me, I could easily find another person that disagreed with that person.
No doubt. No doubt.
So we have to be open-minded, we have to be thoughtful, we have to be respectful, we have to listen. We want to encourage an environment where you feel you can bring your ideas forward, but we also have to have an understanding that we're not going to do everything that's brought forward, but the things we are doing, we really believe in, and we're motivated by the right things. So that's what I hope the relationship is.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johnny C., and then we'll get to Mike Doyle.
I just want to touch on a couple of points that were brought up. First, we talked about race dates. There is nothing firm, but there is the possibility that we may lose a few days early in the spring. As we all know here, the horsemen that are here, in the fall of the year, the horses that are here are all here to race, and our field size is a little stronger in the fall, and there's a lot of races that don't get used because, you know, the menu is strong. So if we do lose races early in the year, I'm just going to suggest the possibility we go to 5 weeks, the last month of the season. Gives everybody a chance. It's the end of the year. History has shown that what I just said, it happens because there are more entries this time of year, and it's sustainable. And if you went to a Monday card, there's no competition from other racetracks. Our Super Bowl of horse racing is over, so the gamblers are still looking for product to bet on. So that's my suggestion. Rather than lose the days early, transfer them till the end of the year, gives everybody a chance. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But try it. That's just my suggestion. Another point that was brought up, and it's a good point, Josie brought it up and Mr. Thompson brought it up about maybe an owner's trainer stipend for racing a horse. And it was introduced at a few different racetracks. The owners just got a $100 increase from $400 to $500, which is great. Maybe we should have had this discussion a couple of months ago, but I'm sure the owners wouldn't have objected to not getting the 100 and maybe moving it to a trainer. And a small trainer, and there's a lot of us here, they know when you go over and run a horse, it costs you a fair bit of money to go over there and do that. And so, and you cap it. You cap it at a certain amount. So you're not always paying 100 to every trainer that ran. So it's capped maybe at a certain amount. And I think it would definitely help a lot of the, not just small horsemen, even big horsemen who have to maybe, you know, I see Kevin, he runs 16 or something one day, so he's going to need extra help. So that would help out. So just some thoughts that I had.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, the one thing I really like the try it mentality. It's something that I try to live by, and you know, you got to be thoughtful. You can't try everything, but I think leaning on being courageous to try new things, and because that's how you're going to push into new areas, and we're doing that on the business side for sure. You know, one theme that I think's come up a lot today so far is is how difficult it is to be one of the smaller trainers. And I know it's difficult across the board, and Kevin, I'm not taking anything away from how complex and difficult it is to run your operation and other large operations, but there's been a pretty consistent theme about the smaller trainers and the smaller operations and how they may have some unique situations. So I think what we will take back from this is say, well, how can we lean in and you know, try to be innovative and think of other things that we might be able to do that we're not doing now that's going to add some help. So I appreciate the comments, the way in which they're delivered is genuine and sincere, and I think that's our job, is to find ways to help you, you know, be more sustainable and strong and comfortable in what you're doing. So thanks for that feedback from you and from others earlier. We'll take that one back.
I have a couple of things to say. Just one of them in particular is I just wondered if you're happy with your people who take care of the track surfaces, the turf, the tapeta. Are you happy with them, or are you still looking for somebody? I know Paolo, is he gone or is he coming back? A lot of us thought that he was doing a really good job through the year, you know, and he was just kind of gone. And there's a lot of talk about who's doing it or who's going to be doing it, and I think it sort of showed up a few times on the turf where you ran on deep track turf courses and had it listed as fast, which hurts your betting, you know. The guys who bet on horses don't sort of like that when it's listed as fast and they watch it and it's clumps coming up all over the place. And then you take the races off the turf. It just sends a bad message, you know. And the other thing is, have you ever considered having a horseman's liaison person working for you, somebody who can relate to all of us? I think it would really, really help you somehow if you could.
Okay, so I'll take second one first. Yes, we're actually actively recruiting into our marketing and commercial department for people with direct experience within the racing industry to do exactly what you're describing. And it's not to necessarily fill a gap, but it's to increase our breadth and to increase our connection, to make sure that decisions that we're making are being mindful of the practical realities that happen on the ground and understand how they may impact through the racing community. So we're actively recruiting for those roles right now. They're incremental roles, and the primary element of that is racing experience, direct racing experience. So yes, on the first piece, we are happy with how the racing services team has done. They've been, I'll say, there's always an opportunity to improve. You're never going to reach perfection, but you know, they do a really good job. They work really hard. They're motivated. They're committed. And you know, we're happy that they filled in at a time that we have had some gaps. I'm not at liberty to discuss anyone's employment situation, so I won't make a comment on that. But you know, we also recognize that despite the fact that we feel that the team's doing a good job, there may be ways that we can support them better going forward. So you know, is it more people? Is it more resources? Is it a different allocation of functions? So we're looking at all of those things actively right now to say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's see where we're at, and can we do better? And where we find any opportunity to do better, we're going to take it, and we'll invest in that area. So safety, integrity, you know, they are pillars of our operation. If you don't have either of those, then you don't have a business. So track service is obviously integral to both of those things, and it's an active conversation.
It's also integral to the life of the horse in
well,
the race game.
Most importantly, and the jockey, yes.
Right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Val.
Just a little, like the groom of the day, like that the HPPA does, is nice. Is there any way, like Gulfstream does it like they broadcast it in the winner's circle for the groom that wins. It just, it's hard to keep good help, and it's hard to motivate good help, and a little bit of recognition might be a real easy way to keep your grooms kind of motivated, because they do work hard and they come over, and if the horse looks great and you did it in the winner's circle, or just, I've seen it at Gulfstream, and it might be something to add.
I love that idea. I love it. So we'll talk our group about how we can do that. And I think, you know, any other ideas of how you want your group to be recognized and ideas you have, bring them forward. It's probably something that we can do without much effort, and but we will put the effort in to make it achieve what you want to achieve. But if there's things that we can do to help you with your staff, bring the ideas forward. You know, we have an events team here. We have a marketing and social team. We have ability to do things at the races. So if that's helpful, we'd love to do it. And it's a great way to shine a spotlight on the people that are really making, you know, things work, right? And the more that we show the different personalities, the different people, the commitment they have to this sport, and we get that message out, then the stronger the attachment is going to be between the general public and our sport. So I think that's a great idea for the person. It's also a great idea for the business.
Anybody else?
Jeff, if I could.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, I must tell you, as a board member, listening carefully to the conversation and the dialogue we've had, I'm not surprised, but I'm very impressed with the questions, the comments, and the interest and the passion coming from this room. And I mean this very sincerely. It's extraordinary. And I just want to reinforce a couple comments that Jim and Michael made, because I think they're really important. If you leave here with no other message, there's a very important one. And I think that the Woodbine Thoroughbred business is got a very promising future, and I hope you see it that way. I hope you're as enthusiastic about it as I am. And I know the daily struggles, believe me, I know what they are. But there's a bright future for this organization and for thoroughbred racing. And I say that because I hope you can sense the passion and the commitment from both Jim and Michael as they spoke. The organization is a racing organization, full stop. Our mandate is to sustain and grow this business. It's been said, I just want to reinforce it. That's full stop. That's why we exist, and that's our purpose. And everything we do around here, as Michael laid out, and Jim, in terms of alternative revenue sources, is really designed to support the live racing operation. That's the truth. And ultimately, I hope you would agree that working towards a day when we're free of government subsidization is an important day for us to release ourselves and grow ourselves. And while we're involved like we are today with a long-term funding formula, we are somewhat handicapped. And I think the enthusiasm I have is that there is an opportunity and there is a bright future if we can get ourselves free of having to rely on government to support the thoroughbred industry, or the standardbred industry for that matter. So I leave with that. I leave you with those comments. Thanks, Steve.
I think we do have one more question.
Yeah, I just want to ask about the 25,000 homes you're going to build. Is that considered for the grooms or lower people? You know, when you build your homes, when you take the trucks down, you're going to do a development of resident. 25,000, Jim said. Is any of that allocated to the racetrack people?
The residential.
Resident.
The real estate is going to be built for racetrack people.
Yeah.
Oh. I think, our development people are not in the room, but certainly it's contemplated. I can't sit here today and there will certainly be programs in terms of the housing that goes on. We're not going to do it, though. We're not developers. It's not what we do. But I think that the government programs, and we have an interest in. I don't know exactly how we deal with the residences that are here today in terms of what this looks like down the road, but certainly it's a major consideration that in terms of housing. So it's not lost on us. Again, for all the reasons that Hugh has said, Michael has said, we're all in this together. We want people to live here. We want to expose people to race, and we want a GO train station so people can get to work and so forth. So we will do our best to make sure. Okay, thanks for the question.
One question, please. There's a lot of questions asked here, which are good points. Kevin's track surface. I think a lot of people are worried where we're going and what's going to make this a better game. Mike, this is the first time I met you. You seem like a good numbers man, but I want you to put yourself on a lot of people back here. We try to keep the numbers together and try to keep making ends meet. And what I mean by that is you're talking about maybe lose a couple dates, bring them forward, bring her bigger purses. How does that really help the horsemen try to keep afloat with a shorter term and try to succeed profitability-wise and stay alive? What I'm trying to get at is you're seeing your numbers, but I don't think you're seeing the backstretch numbers, and that means horsemen, employment. I think it all starts with this. You tell me field sizes. Well, anybody could tell you what's more profitable. Bigger par mutuals, regular synthetic race or turf race. Which one makes more money? Which one's more profitable? You explain that to me. I've been here 45 years. This means a lot to everybody in here. We don't know if we're coming or going, prepping a horse for a race, and it's called off in the race office, or you're going to use an equal race because there's better horses, you want to put a better product on. I respect that. But you got to look at other people's thoughts and investments on what direction we're going. Because you are a smart numbers man. Put yourself on our side by cutting a few days back. Doesn't seem like a lot. Giving more money at the end of the day. Maybe the extra day could really help. Maybe putting a stop to Fort Erie. All the horses going south that people don't know how to spell horse make money off, guess what? All of us. What are we going to do to stop all this? AGCO is stopping us. Maybe you got to be stable on the grounds to stop our horse population leaving from us. Because you know what? In 3 years from now, when the big breeds that we were talking about, that Jim was saying, if they're not here, we're finished. We got to come up with a solution.
Thanks. You're making an assumption that I don't have a personal background with ownership and training of horses, which I do. So I would disabuse you of that assumption. I understand the personal commitment to it. I understand the frustration. I understand the perspective. And I build that into any decisions that I'm a part of. I will also say that whatever I am, it's not me making these decisions. There's a team of people that work for this organization that make these decisions. What I do is I establish the priorities, and I give them the license to make decisions, to think big, to have courage, to go with their beliefs, to understand why we're here, which is exactly what you're describing. I don't make these decisions. It's not the numbers guy making the decisions based on numbers. I'm not flipping through a book and seeing what number comes out the bottom. We have conversations.
I understand.
And if you're not supported, if you're not successful, we've failed. So we have conversations about trying to keep horses on the grounds. If what I would love to do, which would probably be the most motivational thing this group could understand, is if I could have an audio recording of Jim on the line with AGCO fighting for everybody in this room. And when I say fighting, I mean fighting for everybody in this room.
I know that.
So your passion is very well received. Your ideas are good. Bring them forward. We have an intention and a motivation to do what is going to best support this industry. And we're not myopically looking at numbers. We understand the human element of it. And we will continue to understand. The more we can understand it, the better. But we do consider that. And any decision we would make in consultation with everybody in this room around race days or otherwise is because we believe at the end of the day it's going to be better for you. If we thought it would be worse for you, we would not make that decision. That would go contrary to every reason we come to work. So there may be a set of reasons and things that we're basing our decision on that you or others may not agree with, but we do. And somebody has to make a decision. So we want to factor in your input. Don't assume that we're not going to make a decision that isn't supporting you. Also, there might be certain things we want to do that we're not able to do because this is a highly regulated industry with a lot of politics.
It sure seems that way.
So we're fighting through that. Like there's many times that we are banging our heads against the wall saying this makes no sense. Like why can't we do this? We're explaining this is how it works. This is how it's impacting the people. So we're trying. Yeah. We're going to continue to try. We're not going to give up. If we weren't thick-skinned, I don't think we'd be working here anymore. So we want to get to that end state as much as you do. We're going to do it as fast as we can. Being the in control of our own destiny by being financially self-sufficient is going to help. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make it as successful as we can be and allow ourselves to grow. But I appreciate everybody in this room. I sincerely do. And all of you are individuals. And all of you have an investment here, financial and emotional, that we have to respect, and we want to grow that. Without that, this will never be a business where we're generating money from wagering without running live racing from horses that are bred in Ontario. Won't exist. We could do that tomorrow. We'd make way more money than we're making now. Never will do it, because that's not what we're here for.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just want to thank everybody for showing up today and having some great conversations. Obviously, the Stronger Togethers we had on a more frequent basis, and hopefully next season we can have them on a more regular basis. Obviously, having Hugh back with us, so some great feedback, and Jim always being the staple to the Stronger Togethers, and Michael, thank you so much for joining us as well. Thanks to our friends at New Holland as well for providing free lunch. If you want to see Grace right there, Grace, maybe just raise your hand. She has vouchers for free lunch courtesy of New Holland as well. So thank you so much for joining us, whether here in person or online, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.